Now, this is SB Roz. I am the coach and often quite messy whole human who writes SB's Chipped Plaster and Death and Stuff. And most recently, a new project with my mother, Curated for Good Trouble, a Substack with little bits of positive news and little actions that you can take um, here on Substack. Um, on Monday in SB's Chipped Plaster, I quoted Howard Thurman, a theologian, who said, don't figure out what the world needs, figure out what makes you come alive and go do that. Because what the world needs is more people who are alive. And a friend generously forwarded me an email exchange where someone brought some curiosity to that. Said, I bet that the people I oppose feel quite alive in what they're doing, and I think that's fair. I think that's probably true. And I'm actually reminded of a wonderful therapist that I worked with, Cheryl Dunn, who we were talking about something, I can't even remember what, not relevant, but I had a moment of sort of righteous indignation, like a real sense of like, I'm right and they're wrong. And she was like, how does it feel? And I had to admit that, like, oh, it feels kind of yummy, right? Like, not good, right? Not good. It didn't feel like a warm blanket I wanted to wrap myself in, but it felt powerful in some way. It felt enlivening for sure, right? But when I was able to step back and look at it through the lens of my values, especially my value of all our us, right? A bigger us, um, then all of the yummy went away, right? Because I can't say that I'm right and somebody else is wrong and also embrace um, a bigger us. Now, that was an interpersonal thing, right? That was a difference of opinions and perspectives that's different than policies and decisions and behaviors that harm other humans. So we got to draw a line there, right? But I think that's the point of what the email exchange was saying, which is that without a check to our values and without a perspective of where harm enters the picture, then enlivenment isn't a clear enough directive, right? Because we can feel very alive while doing harmful things. So I will admit that I bank on averages. That I believe in the core of my being, and in a lot of ways I have to for the sake of my own well-being and my own motivation, that if most of us followed what we found truly and deeply enlivening, if most of us paused to check with our values and to figure out what's really important to us, then the vast majority of us would choose non-harmful behavior. The vast majority of us would choose collective behavior and caring for one another and the far warmer and fuzzier yummy of our interconnection, an interconnection that serves us all and that supports us all and that cares that people have food and shelter and um, their essential needs. I have no way to prove that, and I don't want to. I want to stay in my version of enlivenment and I want to stay motivated. There's this book by Kurt Vonnegut Jr., one of my very, very favorite authors. Interestingly, my other very, very favorite author is Zora Neale Hurston. If you've read both of them, they have like basically nothing in common. Um, but in his book, Cat's Cradle, there's a religion that I mentioned not too long ago because I think about it a lot, Bokononism. And I'm going to butcher this quote, but essentially the idea is this made up word called FOMA, and it's harmless untruths, but I prefer to think of it as harmless unprovables. And the idea is, what do you need to believe, even if you can't prove it, that helps you to be happier and braver and stronger and more enlivened? So I choose to believe that most of us have a bigger us deep in our beings, deep in our values, and that when somebody doesn't have a bigger us there, when somebody truly and deeply trends toward violence and harm, it's because they've been so profoundly harmed. I can have compassion for that, and I can have a ton of empathy, and I can still oppose that. So, my friends, tell me in the comments below, where do you find your enlivenment? How do you find your way forward? I'd love to know. Please be safe out there. Take good care of yourselves and each other.